And expensive these days. It's hard to get a power supply for a reasonable price.
It is. It is. That's a great way to start. How's it going, everybody? Happy Saturday.
Everybody just talking about power supplies.
Everybody be like, hey, they really do just do this off the air, too. It's true. We just turn on the camera for 2 hours. That's the only thing that changes.
That is literally what we do.
Just a snapshot in our typical Saturday.
Pretty much. So, hey, Snow, hey, Board, hey, everybody else. How's your Saturday going? Hope you're great. We're going to talk about making RPG builds.
Yeah.
On a game that we've never played before. Not a specific game, just a game we've never played before. You know, this is something I have to help Pookie out with once in a while because she's a pretty new gamer. People might forget how new she is because she plays all these FromSoft games, but she is actually a really new gamer.
She is new, but she is very accomplished.
Yes. Congratulations, Pookie. It's Sunday. GamesByDesign is confused. I am often confused, Frenham. Often confused.
But it is definitely not Sunday in our time zone. Otherwise, Pseudo and I wouldn't be here.
Yes, it is. It is 4 p.m. here.
On Saturday.
Turn this thing up. Yeah, Saturday. 4 p.m. So, you know, as a long time gamer, and I'm not going to date myself too hard, but as somebody who's been gaming for a minute, I've made a lot of builds in my day. To the point where when I start playing a game, making a build is kind of just second nature. You just kind of look at it like, oh yeah, I want these. But then you go to explain to somebody how to make those decisions. And you're like, well, you just do it?
You just kind of know?
Yeah.
And then you do the thing?
Yeah. So Pookie has often asked me lots of questions, and I one time said, you know, I should probably just do a panel to help people make builds in games they've never played before. For all, you know, not just people who are starting to get into games, but lots of people who have been gaming for a long time might even learn something here, because not a lot of people make builds. Like, if you've been playing MMOs your whole life, you've probably never made a build in that MMO ever. You've gone online and you've taken the build and you've used it. Same with League. Builds are the same thing in League. Not very many people make their own builds in League. They go copy-paste because there's so much variation, so much variety.
And so much optimization that goes into it as well.
Yep.
I definitely fall in my category of people that look up a build and run with it. Especially since there's usually a lot of trial and error. And there's always a lot of websites for this stuff too. And then, you know, users rate them. You can see like, oh, this build, you know, 5-star build worked well for me and all the other stuff. And it's like, oh, well, why would I, you know, bother trying to trial and error and having a bad time when someone else has already had that bad time for me?
Absolutely. And, you know, if you can start with a build that somebody else has made, I absolutely recommend doing it. That's the best way to start a game. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. So where do we want to start? We should start with something structuring here.
So maybe we should go over what a build is in various different kinds of games.
Okay, that's definitely... I think that's a good... Does everybody else think... Where should we start? What is a build in general? Do you want us to start talking about even what the fuck a build is when we talk about a build?
So, I mean, there are several different kinds of build. There's your stereotypical RPG build. There's strategy game builds. There's RTS builds. There's chess builds.
I never really thought of those as builds, but I guess kind of. I think a build is more of something that is altered pre-game or during game. Whereas the chess build would be more the move or the strategy set you decide to use within your game.
Oh, that's the fun thing about the term build. It has a bunch of different meanings.
It does. So maybe not just what is a build, but let's also include the option of what does build mean? I guess that is also what is build. Sure.
Yeah.
We got there eventually.
We've got some snow penguin petting in chat, but I don't see a whole lot of opinion on where to go. Everyone just wants to pet the penguins.
I mean,
I can't blame them.
Not the worst.
I want to pet the penguins too. That's some aggressive scrolling there.
And for once, it's not me abusing my mouse for shooters.
All right. So what is a build? We'll start there, since I haven't gotten a whole lot of input from y'all yet. People are still just filtering in. So let's just start talking about a build. The standard current day most popular understanding of what a build is the skills, perks, abilities, loadout, chosen to be used in a game. I have no idea what a build is. Excellent. It's real nice. Not a ton more unpacked than before, but it's coming along. So, the game that you joined me for, Snow Penguin, you said was... and I haven't forgotten the game. I remember the game. I'm just really bad with names. They escape my brain for moments at a time. BioShock. And BioShock has lots of builds to it. BioShock, the build would be not just which weapons you decide to level up, but what skills you take for the weapons, and also which plasmids you choose to use, right? And which plasmids you have equipped can vary greatly throughout the game for all your different areas. That would be your build. You know, making sure that the stuff you've chosen works together to aid in the way you play the game. Oh, thank you for the host.
And that can be applied across many, many different kinds of games. Generally, in a first-person shooter like BioShock, one would say that, you know, there isn't really a build to that. But in BioShock, there's enough RPG elements that there definitely is.
Oh yeah.
Like Deus was saying, which plasmids you're using, which weapons you're using, how you level them up, what kinds of ammunition you're using. That is very much a build, a way that you have set yourself up to play the game. Yeah, it works better when you turn RageBot on first.
Wake up, man. Do your goddamn job.
That statement about builds can be made true across a great variety of games, often ones with RPG elements in them, something with a skill tree, something with stats, but it can also be applied to games like I was mentioning before that are not stereotypically RPGs, do not have many RPG elements. For instance, in StarCraft, a build is deciding what kind of army composition you want to have, and then figuring out the most effective way to get there without dying.
Yep. Doom could be which
Doom.
weapons you've decided to use. You don't have to use them all. You might be saying, these are the weapons that get me through most situations. This is what I've gotten good with. The other weapons you might use once in a while, but that's your mainstay. You saw me do that a lot when I played Doom 2016. I was like, I like this weapon right now. I'm going to use this weapon.
And as much as I love Doom 2016, I do kind of feel like that was a failing of the game. Because like, basically, once I got the super shotgun, that was the only gun I used.
Super shotgun is a super shotgun. That's stated. Or as we were...
GTA cars be a build? No, I think that would be more just your aesthetic choice for how you want to get around. You know, maybe there is a little bit of stats around that, but it would be more which stats on your character that you level up.
Yeah, what guns you like to carry with you.
It might apply for the racing in GTA, because I know there's a lot of online racing, and there is quite a bit of upgrades that go into your cars. But for the most part, it's more kind of a linear progression. Like, you usually will always try to pick the best engine upgrade, the best brake upgrade, the best suspension upgrade.
I don't know, I might pick the breast suspension upgrade.
Yeah. Instead of trying to it is technically a build, and there might be some strategic elements to picking certain things, but usually a build is like you have a lot of options, and you want to pick the most effective and value valuable options for what you want to do, since you can only pick certain ones. But in that case, it's mostly just like, have you unlocked the best in slot? I'm just going to use best in slot.
I think that is... Hey, Space Ghost, thank you for the host.
Welcome, Space Ghost.
Welcome in. Join the conversation. I've bolded what was just said because I think that is the perfect encapsulation, really, of what a build is. A build is a subset of many options.
Combined with the first bullet point, I 100% agree.
That's sort of where we're going with this. Anytime where you're looking at a game where you can do many things in the game, but doing all of the many things isn't really a good idea and you want to focus on a small set of those things to win, that's a build.
Which is most games with a skill tree.
Yes. Yes.
Which we'll be talking about later.
Yeah, and I will dig in fairly heavily to MMOs since that's where the builds get arguably the most complicated. Like I've written build guides for WoW and stuff like that. I've never made my own Rift build.
Just too complicated.
I've worked and modified on a Rift build with a buddy, and we made something that was #1 in damage and #1 in healing in every single 5-man we did.
Which is very impressive.
It was fucking cool. It was dumb. You just melt whatever's in front of you and heal the whole party while you're doing it. I miss Rift.
Gotta love games with broken mechanics like that. Like, one of my favorite builds in League is Cruise Missile Hecarim, which is unfortunately no longer a thing because they changed his passive. But his passive used to be, and this is sort of getting into how you choose your build, how you design a build, is his passive used to be that as he gained movement speed, he gained attack damage. And he had attack damage scaling on 3 out of his 4 abilities. So obviously, my first thought was, okay, well, let's abuse that, and just built nothing but movement speed. So basically what would happen, and this is one of my favorite builds of all time to do anything with, is you run in at the speed of sound, immediately blow up all of the enemy's squishies, and then die. You're a cruise missile.
Yep, that works, I guess.
It makes it a form.
It's the kamikaze approach. It's the kamikaze approach, but it works. So, I just started this game. Where do I start? Does anybody have any stories they can remember of just starting? Like especially Space Ghost might have some interesting tales because he just played Dark Souls not too long ago for the first time. Board has just recently played Dark Souls. He had a little bit of my information coming on, but like those games, the builds get real interesting, and there's a lot of information thrown at you that is actually well detailed if you dig into it, but it can be complicated.
It's a little opaque.
A little, but it is actually there still, which I liked.
So when picking up a new game, I will generally, first thing I do, go look at the stats. Go see what they do. See what they affect. You want to see like where you're getting your damage from, where you're getting your defenses from. If you're playing a game like Dark Souls where you have rolling, see if there's a stat associated with that so you can be better at not taking damage in the first place. Cough, cough, Dark Souls 2.
Well, I mean, maybe keep that in mind, but I mean, that's the only game I can think of that did that. No game has done it since, and no game should do it, and
yeah,
they should be chastised and crucified for that.
But like, look at ways to deal and avoid taking damage. If you're playing a traditional JRPG, for instance, there may be a speed stat, which will not only generally allow you to act first, so you don't have an opportunity to take damage from the enemy, and will also often increase your dodge ability, make you harder to hit. So even if they do get a turn, they're less likely to hit you, reducing the incoming damage.
You should also consider how you like to play the game at first, too.
Yes, very much.
I'm gonna add that in there, because while there's different ways to play a game, there's not necessarily a right and wrong way to play a game. There's a more effective and less effective way to play the game. But if it's about having fun, and you like having fun in a certain way, look at the skills for how you like to play the game first. See how they work. But never just focus on those. Play with a little bit of everything.
A thing I usually do when I start playing a game that has a skill or stat tree is I will look to see if you can respec or reset your talents later, because that really kind of affects how I'm going to put these stats in. If there's a way, let's say if it's either a free way to reset or if there's a cost associated with resetting, you're kind of more flexible on what you want to do. But if it's a game where you can't, once you've chosen your certain perks, once you've chosen your skills, if you can't change them, you're going to want to put a lot more effort into what you pick, because if it's say you don't make a build that you're having fun with, and you make a build that's maybe not as great as it could have been, it really is going to affect your experience later in the late game.
Absolutely. To which I quickly add, it is okay to save your skill points. All right, if you're progressing and you're doing okay, and you're not sure about how you want to go in the future for your build, nothing's forcing you to spend those points. Save them until you start struggling. When you start struggling, you'll understand where your shortcomings are.
And on a somewhat different track, like how do you choose the skills that you want to invest in? I will generally look at whatever the highest level abilities are. That is an amazing name.
Welcome to the table, Jesus farted. Enjoy your lovely new stool.
Where was I? Right.
You're lost now is where you are.
I will look at the top tiers of every skill set. Like if there's a skill tree that's all about using big two-handed weapons, I would look at the final level of skills that you could get and see what benefits I would gain from those. Maybe there's an ability that lets you block and not take damage even though you don't have a shield. Maybe there's an ability that lets you like do a big slam into the ground and cause a shockwave or something like that. And okay, that could be cool. And then you look at the next set of skills, and maybe there's something with a bow that lets you shoot an arrow that penetrates through multiple targets or bounces from one target to another. And, okay, well that sounds really powerful. And I will choose my path for my skill tree based on those capstone skills.
Yep. So with all these choices being thrown around and different things being named, I feel it's really important to state, focus your choices. You do not want to be good at everything in the game, because you cannot be great at everything. Choose the things you want to be good at, focus on those. Get that one thing to the point of broken. If that one thing is what you have fun with, you will spend hours laughing.
Oh yeah. Like anytime you see Deus or I guess you haven't seen me play Dark Souls, but we'll run around with a giant two-handed sword and just wallop things into the ground and just cackle the whole time.
Don't need armor if your enemy's face first in the ground.
Yep.
Now,
To
go ahead.
To go on that, I'm really bad for focusing on choices as well. And you'll find that with a lot of games, there's certain like paths in skill trees that they've set that kind of fit roles the game designers had in mind. So they're not really set in stone, you should take them, but you'll kind of see that certain trees or even certain categories of ones I'll have or for certain things. Like maybe you'll be doing more damage, or maybe you'll take less damage, be more tanky. But I've been bad before, halfway through one tree, like, you know what, I kind of want to start going the other way. But then what happens is you kind of just get the worst of both. You don't do enough damage, and you don't take enough, or you can't, deflect enough damage. So you got to be important. Like when you find a tree that you're going to go through, you're going to have to kind of commit to it if they don't let you respec. Because otherwise, if you're like me and you start trying to build something else later, they're not really going to be planning for that, and overall, you're going to have like a lower skill character in end game content, where the game designers are expecting you to have those kind of later end game perks that you would have unlocked if you kept down the same path.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about with focusing, which is exactly what Pseudo's talking about here. Is the later skills are exponentially more powerful. So if you're not building straight down one tree in order to get those later game skills, then you're going to be much less powerful than expected. You might be somewhat powerful in lots of areas, but you won't be really powerful anywhere. And it's not a good combination. It's not. If anybody's played pen and paper games, that is one of the best examples of focusing your character and focusing your build. Because those games will mercilessly destroy you if you don't build right.
Repeatedly. It's very much a situation of wanting, instead of to be good at everything, be the best at something. Because if you can be the best at something, then odds are you can be strong enough in that one thing to overcome your weaknesses in other areas.
The key design element coming from that one is the fact that pen and papers are a team-oriented game. Your character should not be able to do everything. Period.
We should probably touch on that as well. For I just started this game. Where do I start? If it's a team game, let's say if it's like a co-op game, that's another thing to do is maybe discuss with your teammates, what builds they want to do, what's everyone's strengths, and kind of what they want to play. So you don't end up with team compositions where you'll have like two people the same role, which maybe might not work for this game, might cause you problems down the road. I've played pen and paper games where no one wanted to play the healer for whatever reason, or people just didn't think about it at the time, and then you try rolling without like a critical role, and next thing you know, the game is like a lot harder because you have kind of stacked skills, which maybe won't make you twice as powerful with two people doing them. But you can kind of share out like what I want to do. Or if your friend really wants to do a certain build, you can kind of encourage you to maybe step out of your comfort zone a little bit and try something new and see if you like it.
For sure. And that's something that you see very often in specifically Overwatch, where people will want to play damage classes because damage is fun. I like big numbers. Big numbers are great.
Especially in a shooting game.
Oh, yeah. But one, those high damage classes generally take a lot of skill to be very effective with. And two, it's not a single player game. If everybody is damaged, you don't have anybody to hold the objective. You need somebody who's going to be able to soak a lot of damage to be able to stand there and take the objective. And generally, you'll also need somebody healing that damage sponge in order to have them be able to withstand the onslaught of the enemy team. So there is much more to it than just, I like doing this.
So this is such a complicated, loaded thing. I've added a whole heading so that we can go a little bit into team composition. Because for us to just say, hey, I've just started this game, where do I start? Well, look at your team composition. That's a thing right there.
That's a whole thing.
That is a whole thing. How many people in chat right now feel comfortable taking on a team of people in any game and organizing a team of different builds to work together?
Deus does.
I've never done that in my life, I swear. I started in the 40-man days when you literally needed to come up with 40 different people to fill the different roles. That was fun. I miss that.
You could just scheduling that is just insane.
Yeah.
And then get like 5 people online to like, or even 4 people online just to play some like co-op games. Let alone trying to get 40 people together for a set time.
In order to
Just
get
nuts.
40 people regularly to attend and have a raid on time, I needed about 120 scheduled raiders. Because as the number of people goes up, the chances of life shit being encountered by people also goes up.
But like not at the same rate. It goes up like exponentially. Like
Okay.
even with this show, we have had times where one of us just can't make it.
And that's once a week.
It happens. Yeah.
The Holy Trinity. Who knows what the Holy Trinity is?
Me, I do.
Can anybody give me them? One of them?
Let's wait
Pookie
for
knows what
chat.
it is. I know Pookie knows.
Let's see if chat's got it.
Pookie not only knows what the Trinity is, she's played all 3 points of the triangle.
Basically, just a paladin in World of Warcraft.
Just do what you want. Nobody cares.
It was the best ADD class. It's like, you know what? I feel like being a tank.
Yeah, I've got my own thoughts on that.
Middle
That's
of the
a
road
show
classes.
in itself. No, it's not a middle of the road class. It was one of the best in all of its areas.
It was,
Really?
Yeah,
Yes.
That sounds pretty broken.
It was
It was
extremely
so weird.
stupid because everybody was always bitching, oh, this isn't viable. Oh, that isn't viable. Who cares if it's not viable? It's viable. It's just not the best and can't compete with the best because your specialty is something fucking else.
So, and a really, really bad part of it later on when they started implementing like auto rolling in World of Warcraft is that if you're a paladin, you can roll on plate gear for, attack, tank, or even sometimes healing. Like the drops are endless, so you're always rolling on something. So if you had 1 or 2 in your party, it's just like everyone else just doesn't really get anything. It was super broken. You didn't have to be in a like a DPS spec to be able to roll on that DPS gear. I don't know what they were thinking, but it was interesting to play.
So as a real brief aside, what happened to World of Warcraft is they listened to their forums.
And that's a terrible idea.
Okay? They go in there and they listen to the complaints of players and they incorporate that into patches. And it's been a continuous downhill watering down of content because they're listening to players instead of letting game designers make the choices. Bad. Okay, enough on that subject.
Turns out game designers know what they're doing by the time they have a job at a company like what used to be Blizzard.
Yeah. So, the Holy Trinity, since I haven't seen any answers there, is a tank, a healer, and a damage dealer, or a DD. You are not a damage per second. You're a damage dealer. Get it right.
I've also heard DD referred to as dedicated damage.
Yeah. Dedicated damage. I don't mind that term either. I like that. Though it's not always dedicated damage. Because they're often interrupting. Damage dealers often have interrupt roles in most games.
And then there are often classes that are literally just damage, and that's what I go play.
Nothing was literally just damage in Vanilla WoW.
Oh, I believe it. But that's not how it is these days.
Yeah, the closest would be a warlock. And most of their tasks were like pre-raid. They were a lot of like making soul stones for people, so they'd have to go absorb souls out of monsters running around outside of the dungeon and turn them into healing items and hand them out to people in the raid and stuff like that. It was really cool. It was really, really cool. It was time consuming, and you had to like sacrifice to be one of the warlocks because it took your time away to go prepare, but such a cool mechanic. Wizards were just automated water dispensers.
The fact that there was a utility to the class like that is just such a cool game design little nugget.
Yep. Wizards or mages could create a portal to teleport people to the major cities. They were the only class that could do it, so you had to go find a mage and pay them to make a portal, and they made pretty good money teleporting people around. Stuff like that. I miss that.
Reminds me of Guild Wars 1. I made so much money running people between cities just because rangers had a bunch of movement abilities and they had a pet, so it was hitting something that wasn't you, and you could trap to avoid big things. It's actually very easy.
Okay, so tank healer, damage dealer. Do we have any questions? Before I move on, does anybody not understand what those roles do? That's the modern day Trinity. Anyway. Damage dealer, by the way, used to be called CC. And everyone's job was damage. And you'd bring people to control mobs. You'd bring people to heal. And you'd bring people to tank. And everyone attacked. That's what it was meant to be. It's very watered down now, but it's still fun. I guess that's the basics of it. First consideration. See, this is the hard part because I don't often explain to people how to make a team composition. I've just done it so many times. I look at it and go, oh, we need more of this. First consideration. Do we have enough tanks?
Can we soak up enough damage?
Yeah. Do we have to... How many targets are there? How many targets can each tank hold? That's basically what you're thinking with tanks. Alright, so coming from the era of multi-enemy fights, if you've got 6 enemies in the fight and each one of them hits so hard that the tank can only have one, you need 6 tanks. Then, do we have enough healers? How many healers do we need on each tank? How many tanks are there? Because the question, how many tanks are there for do we have enough healers? Oh, and then I guess there's also the consideration typically extra healers for DDs.
But honestly, the DDs are a secondary concern when picking healers. The DDs shouldn't be taking damage in the first place. They need to avoid the damage.
Yeah, that's why I specified if splash damage, but that's kind of in the air. We've kind of gotten real complicated real quick, huh?
It turns out team composition is a thing.
We'll just quickly go through this. You don't have to pay attention to the team comp part if you're looking for the single player stuff. Raid wide damage, not necessarily the whole raid, but it's damage that hits an area. You know, it'll hit here and then radiate some damage outward. Typically that damage is unavoidable. In some games, they'll have a mechanic of some area damage around the boss happening where you want to kill the boss as quickly as possible. If you can keep the DDs in there and have a healer just heal them through it, then you're going to get more damage time. That's now more advanced strategy for another. Maybe I'll do a raid leading 101 and explain how to deal with all the different situations in a dungeon sometime. That could be fun, actually.
Oh heck, even just doing like tanking 101 is a hell of a thing.
Yeah, I could easily do a tanking 101. Do we have enough tanks? Do we have enough healers? And then everybody else is damage. Consider interrupts. But that's about it. The faster we kill whatever it is we're trying to kill. So here's how all the math works, right? The less damage you have, the longer the fight takes. The enemies are dealing damage per second. on the rating. So you can easily tell, if it's an extra minute longer due to less damage, how much extra damage that would be. It's 60 times their damage per second average, most likely, is about what you can add on to it.
There will be some downturn of that as enemies die, but
depending on how many ads there are. Yeah,
depending on how many ads there are, depending on how long it takes you to kill a thing.
But mainly when it's taking longer, that's more damage being done, which means more heals need to be cast, the tank needs to do things longer, more mechanics happen. More mechanics happening means people have to dodge stuff more times. Dodging stuff more times means it's more likely for people to die and things to fall apart. All bad. See, like when Rage and I were playing Destiny 2. So now he can talk a little bit about single player builds and build focus.
That game.
Which is what we're going to talk about now. Build focus is the most important thing. And that's what this is for all the people playing those single player games. So if you can kill the boss in one shot, none of the mechanics matter.
It literally can't affect you because the boss is dead.
Yeah, so there's this one part at the beginning of the first Destiny 2 expansion where you have to fight this boss that runs away from you as all these enemies spawn and you chase him down this long corridor. Well, we turned the corner and headshot the boss and he died.
He disintegrated and then the mission ended.
Instantly. No, the mission didn't end. It's just, apparently, if you remember, all the triggers for all the enemies throughout that whole corridor were actually tied to the boss entering the corridor, not the player. So when we one-shot the boss, we had to run through an empty game to the end of the level.
That's what I meant about the mission ending. There was no more mission after that. You just kind of walk to the end.
Yeah, we still had to run through the whole level, but yeah, no more enemies spawned. It was all just nothingness after that.
And how you get to that state is through build focus. And that's why we bring that up as an example. Specifically in Destiny 2, and I am going to stick with this example because it's a very simple skill system and it's very easy to explain. In a game like this, you shoot things, you click on them. Your mouse accuracy is obviously important, but there's not a whole lot that you can do to avoid damage. So my first thought was, okay, well, if there's not a ton that I can do to avoid damage, the only thing I can do to not take damage is to make them dead first. So, okay, let's find as much damage as I can. So I started looking into what items there were, how they could synergize with the abilities that I was using in order to give them more damage, to give me a higher burst damage, which is very different from damage per second. Damage per second is, as you might surmise by the name, a rating of how much damage you can deal on average every second. That's a very useful damage statistic for something like an MMO, where you need to know how long a fight is going to take. But for a game like Destiny, where it's generally you and maybe a couple other people, you want to know, more importantly, how much burst damage you can deal. Because you need to make a very large thing very dead very quickly so nobody else dies.
Classic example of DPS versus burst damage would be a machine gun versus a sniper rifle. The machine gun may deal more damage in the time it takes for that sniper rifle to fire a shot and reload, but the machine gun is dealing a whole lot of little damages, whereas the sniper rifle deals it all in one quick hit.
Yeah. So I essentially turned myself into that sniper rifle in Destiny 2. I found an item that makes my ultimate ability very high damage, but you could shoot it a couple of times, into a very high damage even for this ability, but you can only shoot it once. So you can't miss So I refined that burst damage to the point where the game simply won't dish out any more damage. It's just the highest damage ability in the game. And then I said, okay, well, now I've got this super high damage burst ability. How do I get to do that more often? So I found out different ways in my skill tree to say, make a headshot and reduce the cooldown on that ability. Or, okay, this item gives me reduced cooldowns, so let's equip that one. And as I was doing this, just going deeper and deeper into this focus of massive, massive burst damage, the game broke. Bosses just kind of stopped existing. Like there were mini raids that you could do, little 4-man things where you would fight your way through a level, and at the end there was a boss. And at Destiny's release, I could actually just delete bosses. They just stopped existing. And that is one way to make sure that A, nobody on your team dies. The boss isn't there anymore. There's no more threat. Nobody on your team accidentally messes up and falls off a cliff, because if you're anything like me, you know that gravity is the hardest boss and you will always fall off a cliff if there is a cliff to fall off of. And 3, it means you get to your loot faster, so you can do it again sooner.
However, D, it also means nobody has any fun.
No, I had a ton of fun. Everybody else, whatever.
Hey, look, it's a oh, that was literally
What
my
boss?
Destiny
There's
2
no boss
experience. Boss room. Oh, where'd it go? Like literally,
the
most
downside
bosses were
being-
about 10-20 seconds.
The downside being we didn't actually learn any of the mechanics for those bosses because I just removed them.
Yeah.
What mechanics?
Mechanics are for cars. What are you talking about?
Yeah, one of the most common phrases you will hear me say when gaming is "threat removed," because there will be a large threat, and I will just dump all of my damage into it, and then it's not a problem anymore.
So that was a quick story example, but there is a lot of process that goes into that we can definitely start going through and help people to do more of a step-by-step on how to get there. So the first one was understanding what will do more damage. Like what, because a lot of people, when they get into the game, yeah, they don't know what all these numbers mean. I don't get it right now. Things are changing. I don't know. Even after you've gone through and found, I figured out, okay, I'm going to want burst damage. How do I first know what deals burst damage? 2, once I know what deals the burst damage, how do I know what makes it deal more damage? How do I figure that out?
And then once you've gotten there, what things can you do within your character to specialize even more?
Let me pull up Dia. Let's
An
try to
important
actually
thing
flowchart this.
is to find the builds that will work for you. So, like, because Rage has quite a bit of experience shooters,
Yep.
so you can make those shots. But if someone else who maybe doesn't have the best aim was trying this build, it would probably be a completely different experience. Because
Yes.
it kind of lends more into the kind of glass cannon trope, where you can just destroy things. But if you miss or it doesn't happen, then you yourself just kind of get destroyed. So it's that skill set that once you find the role that you're comfortable with like, maybe I can't land those headshots per kill, but you know what? I'm pretty good at just laying down a burst fire and moving around. So maybe you can focus on, the actual machine gun builds rather than the damage to it. Once you find that distinction of what you're kind of comfortable with or you're good at, that's when you start really diving into how can I, make this game work for me in a way that it's just going to make me super strong.
Okay.
Just silly.
Does anybody understand the term build tropes? because I think it's going to be very helpful for anybody watching if we go over what the really common standard build approaches are, because those are tropes because they're standardly the most effective.
And they show up in a variety of games, anywhere from like Legends, World of Warcraft, Borderlands to Destiny 2. They're all across the board. The same kind of effectiveness for the characters.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So we agree. So where do we want to start? Who wants to add one? I think we just had one named, but I don't remember what it was already.
Pseudo just named Glass Cannon.
Glass Cannon. Hey, Rift Kick. Welcome. This is an interesting one I'd love to get your opinion on. And Encaria, welcome. I hope we can help. I'd love to hear some questions from you if you have them as we're going here, Encaria. Oh, and thank you for the host. We are talking about how to make a build in a game that you haven't played. So we're going over basically all the information in our head that we can pull out for all the games we've played on how to approach a new game. Something I have to help Pookie with fairly often, and it's really hard to do when you've played so many games. So I've pooled some minds together.
Yeah, and we're going to write it all down in a way that actually makes sense to other people rather than just do more better.
Which is mostly what we say.
A little bit.
Glass Cannon build. All damage, no defense. Kill them before they kill you. Actually, I can do this better than this way. Let's do there and there. All damage, no defense. Kill them before they kill you. Classic examples of a glass cannon in most games is a mage.
Me. Oh, yeah, or a mage.
A mage. A sniper. The sniper is often a glass cannon. He doesn't get much armor in games. He's expected to be a long way away, but he deals large burst damage to the point where I'm here, I'm not here. Glass cannon.
Yeah, and that is my favorite way to play games, as they will generally be the high skill cap. Not necessarily take a lot of skill to play, but take a lot of skill to be the best at. And they will generally have a very high variance in how much you get out of the class based on how much you get out of the build based on how much effort you put in at being good at that build. They are very inconsistent.
Yeah. I feel the rogue stun build should be added in.
Yeah, the crowd control is definitely a big part of things that shows up in a lot of games.
CC builds. Variant armor. Call it defense.
So you specialize in kind of not really like reducing the damage they take, but preventing the enemies from even dealing damage in the first place, or grouping things together so that, let's say, if there's a character with a large area of effect damage, that they can do that.
What is Spronked? It is a backstab in games, like a surprise attack, surprise critical attack from the back. Yeah. It comes from surprise proctology, because in Dark Souls 3, when I was playing it, I was using a weapon that you kind of, rammed in a not so nice location when you did it from behind, so it got called a Spronked. Yeah.
And CC build is somewhat interesting in that they are not always medium to high damage. They can also be medium low damage.
Well, that would be medium damage, most likely.
Yeah, medium to medium low. But they will focus more on just not letting the enemy do anything. which is a very technical way to play the game, and it is super frustrating to play against.
It's very difficult to do well. You have to have superb timing. But if it's done perfectly, my God, it'll change the entire flow of a battle.
Oh, yeah. Much like I would do with the glass cannon and just remove a threat. That is also what CC builds are incredibly effective at.
And CC can be a part of a build, but we're talking about tropes here. You'll see pieces of this go all over the place in most games. Very few will be a single one. You've got your classic tank. Low damage. What? No.
Oh no, we've broken Google Docs.
There we go. Okay. No, it was my brain that was broken. Very high defense. Ability to control enemies. Tank always has to have some sort of an interference ability to keep himself in the front of things.
Yeah, make sure things are attacking him.
Yeah.
All threats. There's also the sustained damage dealer. They're very common in most games. These are the ones that you typically don't have, one or two abilities that just you use them and that's it and hope to God you land that. These are the ones that are like, usually you will have either cooldowns that come up right away, so you keep using them. And a lot of these characters kind of more focus on like gear stats, as well as kind of just like composition and working with them. Sometimes they'll be either like damage over time to get applied, or maybe there'll be area of effects. So then you'll work with, the stun and CC builds in the tank to be like, well, if we group all these people together and I put down this area effect, the damage I'm dealing is going to be, multiplied, by a huge threshold, depending on how many people can actually fit in here. But they're not really going to be just bursting. It's going to be like, all right, throughout this whole fight, my damage is going to be kind of sustained. I've got a lot of stuff to keep that sustained and kind of focus on how to, increase that sustained damage over, multiple targets.
And of course, the healer. Low damage.
Can heal.
Ability to restore health. Yep. And if you play a healer well, you're nigh unkillable. I love playing a good healer.
Also, the extension of that of the support class tropes, things in
well, let's keep this to single player here.
Yeah, you can do a lot of support stuff in single player games. Like a lot of RPGs have a support class.
I guess that's true. You're still controlling a party in the single player game at that point.
So it may not directly be healing, but the support class will be something like, your entire party takes less damage, your entire party does more damage. Things that like, maybe they can help a little crowd control a little bit, but maybe it's mostly just, making everyone in the entire group a bit stronger.
Make enemies weaker, make groups stronger. I always enjoy playing the sniper/assassin when the game allows. Kill or avoid without being seen. Artful dodgers. Yeah. The assassin.
Rogues are just so broken.
The assassin class we started with, the assassin sniper class, definitely falls under the glass cannon build. All damage. Just don't take damage. There's no point in building up your defense if the whole point of the class is to stay in the shadows and kill people before you've ever been seen. I like those classes too. Though I love a good tank. Tanks may be a little longer to play sometimes. The fights will take longer, but it's really funny when nothing can kill you. It's a real power trip. I once ran through like 60 players, had them all trying to kill me, and they couldn't. I still made it into my instance.
And there's just one more point that I want to make about damage over time, or a sustained damage dealer versus a burst damage dealer, and it's relating to specifically StarCraft. in that in StarCraft, there is a unit called the siege tank. And as one might suspect, it's a tank and drives around and shoots things. And that actually has a fairly high damage per second rating because it's shooting small shells fairly often. That same unit can then transform into a gun emplacement where it gains a huge cannon that will just absolutely destroy enemies from a very long range, but it shoots very, very slowly. So that's an example of needing to choose when sustained damage is more valuable or when burst damage is more valuable.
Pseudo's intimately familiar with those siege cannons, aren't you?
Yeah, a little bit.
Filthy Terran player.
One of the first games I played against him, I introduced him to them by setting them up around the edges of his base and then kiting his units towards the edges, chasing my people that were attacking his base.
That did not work well.
Yeah. Oh, I love StarCraft.
What a game.
Yeah, that's... Is there any... Pookie, did we miss any? Anybody else? Did we miss any tropes? That's
Sure,
like the real standards. I mean, there's all sorts of like
more
combinations and stuff, but as the real standards, I'm gonna add typical bard. Everyone knows what a bard is. All right, we're an hour in. It's taken longer than I thought. Let's do the flowchart. Where does it start?
You opened up a new game and you started a new character.
New character. Okay. What's the first decision we need to make?
I would say what... yes, hair. That's true. Character customization.
And 2 hours customizing a character, and especially in the hair.
Spend 2 hours customizing character. Focus on hair.
Which you then put on a helmet and never see.
That's prime gaming right there.
Okay. We've got our character built.
But in a more serious side, I would say take a look at the skill tree and see what kind of roles or tropes are available. And then from there, you can kind of start making a decision of, what have I played before, what am I good at, and what am I going to start kind of, focusing towards.
Look at skill tree.
Where would we put necromancers and summoners? I would say that is a sustained damage build.
Yeah.
It's not direct sustained damage, but because you're summoning lots of things that hit often, you're dealing lots of little bits of damage.
Depends on the necromancer too, and what approach it is.
Depends on how necro is implemented. It can also be a CC class.
Yeah.
It can also be a debuff class.
They can be glass cannons too.
I've never seen a well-implemented glass cannon necromancer.
World of Warcraft Destruction Warlocks.
I
guess it's a warlock, not a necromancer.
The Diablo 3 necro can also be a glass cannon, and it's hilarious.
Yeah, but when it's lots of minions and pets for a summoner, it's a sustained damage class. Is how you treat it when you're doing a team composition. Because it's going to be lots and lots of little hits consistently, and especially if the pets are able to run around and chase it by AI, then you can rely on them constantly dealing damage even when other people are having to try to adjust and re-examine and re-aim, and yeah. So look at end skills to decide where you want to go.
I would say that's fairly accurate. it lets you determine sort of what sort of tropes you will end up going if you specialize in that direction.
Yeah, always keeping your tropes in mind, but you might want to include multiple of them. And again, depending on the game. So what we're saying when it depends on the game is, like, if you're looking and there's like 5 different abilities for ways to control an enemy, your brain could start thinking it might be possible to make a whole build around just locking enemies down. That might be fun.
Also, a text size increase has been requested.
Enhance.
Oh.
Enhance. CSI.
Can I just increase the text size? I can. 30?
I think an important part of looking at end skills as well is looking at the path that you'll be taking to the end skills. Because sometimes there'll be certain builds that, might not be that great until you get to those kind of end game levels, and you're going to kind of want to identify that beforehand, so you kind of know what's coming up. You'll see some other builds, and you see maybe like the mid-tier stuff really isn't really going to do much. Maybe the designers just like made this for a reason of like, yeah, this skill tree has a huge payoff at the end, but you're going to have to work for it and kind of gain a bit of skill to be able to get that kind of reward at the end. So you're going to want to take a look at that as well.
But okay, so we've decided where we want to go. So what's the decision? What are our decisions here when we're deciding where we want to go? Let's actually flowchart this. Sometimes I make builds by looking at the last spells to unlock and ranking them on how cool I think they are. That's basically what we're recommending. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Look at the end skills. Figure out which ones are like, hey, that sounds fun. I want to play with that. And we start building for that.
So I started playing a cleric in D&Ds because I really wanted that 10th level resurrect that you can just, I think you can resurrect almost anyone as long as you know their name and place they died or have a piece of them, which is sad. It was just amazing. You could go at any part as long as if you have a lot of money. It's really expensive to do it, but it just seems so cool. Like, what? I want that. I'm gonna take this character and build him up there so I can do some really cool and fun stuff. Like maybe you need a quest marker along the way. I had a NPC that I really got along with, and unfortunately they got roasted by a dragon, and the only thing that was left was a scarred foot or like a seared foot, and I put that in my bag. I'm like, you know what? In a long time from now, when I'm level 10, I'm bringing you back.
Just in case I need to ask you some questions later, I'm gonna take this foot.
You end up with the weirdest items in games. Okay, I'm gonna try to make this more flow charty. So
yeah, I guess
identify final skill. The first thing we have after we know which skill we want is, I guess, can we... Sometimes. At which
point...
There
will often be a way to at least sort of get an idea of what skills are coming if you go down a tree. And once you've done this a couple of times, you'll start to see patterns. Like you'll see, okay, well, this tree seems to be focused entirely around making you deal more damage. Or this tree seems to be entirely focused around making you take less damage. And generally, you only need to be 2 or 3 levels in to be able to make a decision like that. And once you see that, okay, well, I'm going to be going for a glass cannon build. This skill tree seems to be all about reducing damage, so that's not what I'm looking for. So let's look at this other one. Okay, this one seems to be more about dealing damage over time. Is not quite what I'm looking for. And okay, here's the one that's just make your hits hit harder.
Well, yeah, typically you want to build for damage in a single player game. the first thing you want is to increase your damage. Almost always.
Yeah.
Almost, but there are some like RPG games where, say like the original Fallout series, where you can get by the whole game without doing damage, and if that's something you want to do, you can also look into like those charisma and speech points and stuff like that. And those are the certain games that also don't really have like defined perks at the end. They kind of go into like the what I want this character to be like.
Let's agree that those types of games are a special, rare, few and far between, that if somebody's going to play, most likely has a decent idea of how to do a build already.
That's fair.
The Crafter. Yeah, that's a pretty rare one in today's game. Oh,
I finally got my points.
Very nice. I was just looking at it like, oh, it's coming. Ooh, I get to play it again on PC. And now I get to play it again on PC for everyone.
Yeah, I've been sort of hinting at this and was surprised that you didn't pick up on it. I kept saying a game that you finished and loved, but that I never finished.
Pookie and I had discussed it being one of the potential ones. And Pine Jelly, what last I can think of was what was the most recent big RPG with crafting? As I can think of was Witcher 3, and that's got no player crafting skill. Yeah, there's not a lot of, I mean, not even just RPG. There's lots of games with some crafting to them, but nothing that has a crafting focus to be a trope or a build or an archetype of it. The last one that I can remember where crafting could be like a whole trope of a character would be like Star Wars Galaxies MMO. That's probably the last one.
That was a while ago.
That's a long time ago. It has not been done for a long time. But it was cool. Like, you could legitimately never fight in that game. Spend your whole time building your crafting and trading skills and be an intergalactic merchant and make way more money than anyone else and thus have the best ships, the best weapons, and be one of the most dangerous in space because you've got the money. They may kick your ass in a hand-to-hand, but you've got the money.
If they never get on board your ship, that doesn't matter.
Yep. So we've identified the final skill we want. The first question I'm asking is, always, can I make it do more damage? Always the first question.
And it, in this case, being the final skill.
Yes. But it goes like this, so I have a feeling that's going to be fairly clear, hopefully. Yes. No. So we're going to go the yes path first. So if we go yes, what's the first thing we need to know?
What do you need in order to make it do the most damage? Is it stats? Is it gear? Is it just purely having more levels?
What improves its damage? No. Yeah, that's right. Yay, controls. Can I set
Buttons.
this? Can I set that anywhere by a default? Pseudo, do you know?
I mean, tools. Either edit or tools.
Okay, that's just the edit text tool. Whatever. Okay, so what improves its damage? The next question is, so we've identified that, and to identify what improves its damage, most games will have a change in the numbers. So, like, like Diablo 3 or even Diablo 2, for example, it might not tell you right on the item, but if you watched your status screen and took an item off and put it on, you would see the numbers go up and down. So you can get a feel just by looking at your stats often. Dark Souls and Bloodborne. So let's use Bloodborne from this point out, shall we?
Sure.
Okay, it's got a great system for it. A lot of people talk about how complicated Dark Souls and Bloodborne is to, improve your weapon, figure out, do the gems and stuff like that. But if you just take it super, super basic, right from the beginning.
Those people have not played Demon's Souls.
If you take it just as a super basic set of numbers and you watch their changes and continually go for the better changes, you're generally going to get a decent weapon out of it. Maybe not the best, but you'll get by enough to get more knowledge and do better later. Oops, not what I wanted. You're not what I need. Get out of here. Damn tool. There we go. Get you more over there. So what improves its damage? And yeah, just experimenting, looking, or reading the item. Okay, like in Bloodborne, there's something called scaling. So just looking at this little set of letters will tell you if it's strength that makes it do more damage, skill that makes it do more damage, blood tinge that makes it do more damage, or arcane that makes it do more damage. The higher the letter, the more damage you get from that stat, so you go for that stat if you want to do more damage.
And that's a very easy way to choose what sort of focus you want to have for your stats. You take a look at a weapon you want to use, and you go, okay, how do I get this to do the most damage? What stats do I need? And then you just invest in those stats, and you will generally get more return out of it than just meeting the requirements.
And to take that to an even next level of efficiency, plus making it even easier at the same time. I love this. When you're leveling, it shows you the damage change of your weapon. So I know that my weapon scales well off of these two stats. Well, one's higher than the other because it scales better, but as you go up, it scales worse and worse and worse. You get what we call diminishing returns. So I can now put a point on, see the change in damage, take it off, put it on the other one, see the change in damage, see which one's scaling better to give me more damage at that point, and just go with that for the level. You just literally watch the numbers change and go with the blue numbers. That's about it. So after I know what improves its damage, and if multiple things, what improves its damage the most? First, can I repeat this bonus? Always the first thing.
To change default text size, double click on the text tool, top left.
That is unintuitive. The
Oh.
text tool.
The T.
Oh. Shut up.
It is a very unintuitive design.
Can I repeat this bonus? I hope so, please. Can I repeat this bonus? Yes. Okay, it didn't work.
Even more unintuitive design.
You also used the little cursor tool rather than the T tool.
It doesn't actually change the default for the boxes, just for the text tool.
Rip.
If you double click on the box you use, you can change the default for it.
Thank you. There we go.
Yay,
Yes.
we got there eventually.
User experience.
Yep, that's something.
Yeah, as somebody who is a UI engineer, anytime you have to explain your UI sucks.
Yep. Can I repeat this bonus? Yes.
Then do it.
Yep.
Then do it a lot.
Repeat. No. So we're going to repeat until we can't. And then we have to ask, is there another bonus? Yes?
And then that loops back to our friend, can I repeat this bonus?
Yes. This is now looking like an actual flowchart. No. So, we've now got as much damage as we can out of our weapon, just from that little loop. Find every single thing we can find to make the damage, and put it all on. Pay attention to the numbers, and always watch for percentages. A percentage is always better than a raw number. Just about.
There are some very edge cases that are not quite true with that, but we won't necessarily go into them now.
They're too few and far between and small to care about right here, but I will, you know me, I am Mr. Pedantic, so I've got to include just about. But is there another bonus? No. Okay, so what's the next thing we want? We've done damage. I'd say the next thing is, can I make it faster? Disagrees? Agrees? Gotta check if they're additive or multiplicative percentages too. Absolutely agreed. You're starting to get into more fine min-maxing and fine-tuning within the game systems, but when you want to min-max, definitely good to know. For the newbie and the beginner, they're probably going to be okay with the percentages, even if they're additive. Be fine. They'll get by. They'd probably still be better than raw numbers. And later on, you can min-max. So that you can, kill Papa G in phase 1 with 2 viscerals. I've never done that.
That was a good kill.
Yeah, this is really, we're kind of showing that, like, if you can't make it, do more damage with the hit, you can at least, hit twice as often, effectively, doubling your damage.
Yes. And that's the delineation again between sustained and burst damage. If you in this case, when you're repeating this first step of making it do more damage, that's increasing your burst. When you are making yourself able to do it more often, that's increasing your sustained damage.
Can I make it faster? And then can I do it more times? That's your last one. If you've already got it as fast as you can and as damaging as it can get, how many more times can I do it? Now we're getting into the realm of I've broken the game.
It gets real fun.
This is why my character is always named Soapy. Some of the regulars know the name very well by now. But for those that don't know where the name comes from, it comes from a shortening of So OP. Soapy. I like the look of the screen flow chart too. It's very aesthetically pleasing to me.
It's getting all lefty.
Okay. What improves it? Can I make it do more damage? Always the first question.
If you can't, maybe you want to pick a different skill.
Well, no, then the next one from... Ooh, no, that's not what I wanted at all. The next one from no would just directly be... a shortcut down to, can I make it fast? Because there are skills that you may want to use and focus on that, okay, so like an open world game, say Horizon Zero Dawn, one of the first skills I take in it, because you just submitted it, is the ability to instant kill the little dinosaurs.
Yeah, incredibly powerful.
Totally
ability.
worth taking. Totally cannot improve its damage.
Yeah, because it's an instant kill.
Yeah, but can I make it faster? Can I do it more times?
Can I do it more often?
Yeah. So this is the damage loop, but then can we do it faster, more often? Also heals. You know, they're not going to do more damage, but we can make it heal more. I guess you can include damage as a heal.
Yeah, can make the numbers bigger.
More damage. Or healing. There we go. Pedantic. Or healing. There. Do it more times. Just base that. Does that summarize it? Do we need more? Gotta be more complicated than that, right?
Yeah, well, there'll probably be more skills. And if you don't know those, then identify skills that'll complement the main final skill you want.
We can't. I think this summarizes a single skills improvement for the most part.
Yeah.
You can pretty much use this to get yourself through powering up any skill you want. But we can definitely talk a bit about skill complements.
A little bit of marketing buzzword, a little bit of synergy.
Let's go back here.
And this is actually a legitimate use case for the word synergy.
It is. Skill complements. Skills that complement, or skills that work well together. Try not to use the word in the definition of the word. That's not so good. Skills that work well together. So one of my favorite examples of this is when I played Fallout 4 when it came out. I didn't finish it. I never finish any of those games. They never hold me long enough to get there, but I always have to pick it up and see how they've slaughtered and ruined one of my all-time favorite RPG series, so I do.
You think you'd learn to just stop giving Bethesda money at this point.
Well, I didn't buy Fallout 76.
76.
I didn't buy Fallout 76, so I did learn.
Good.
But, yeah, so I had this little pistol that I quite liked using. I liked the silent aspect of it. So that's what I had built my focus around, was VATS and being silent. And I was just like, let's try to build on these two things. Sneak around and use VATS to just shoot everything in the head until it's dead instantly. And I started looking at the end skills, and I was like, oh, hey, look at that. There's one that makes it so that I get more hit percentage as I shoot at body parts more. So the more shots I take, the more accurate I'll be in the VATS system. I want to use the VATS system, so let's build towards that. And then there's another one that when you're using the body part aiming system, which is what I really want to play with, there's no negative for them being behind cover. As long as you can lock onto them, you can aim at any body part you want. And I'm like, well, I want to shoot them in the head, so that's definitely going to help me shoot them in the head. If their head is obscured by something, it no longer matters. I'll still have the same chance to hit them in the head. Excellent. So we start building towards these, and it turns out that one of the trees you build into to get these two skills also increases your action points, which is how many shots you get to take. While I was playing the game, I found this pistol I loved, or the special ability on the pistol, and this is where you start to find like items that play into your build. That's when the real breaking starts to happen. It was an item that broke Rage's build in Destiny 2. So this pistol reduced the cost of those VATS shots. I literally could make 30 to 35 shots. VATS.
Yeah. Breaking games.
Now, remember that skill I talked about that gave me a little bit more accuracy with every shot? Well, it was like 10 to 15%. So after about 5 shots, the rest of them were all 99% chance to hit the head. as long as I could see somebody's finger pointing out from a window 60 yards away, you know, just like walking around tapping vats. That's all you do. Just walk around tapping. All of a sudden, something walking by a window will go, oh, I found you a target. I got like 5% chance to hit the head because it's, you know, down the block in this window on the second floor. But I've got 30 shots, and after the first 5, 6, it'll be up to 99%. Yeah, sure. She's dead. And it's a silenced pistol, so nobody heard me. Especially with how far away I am, nobody would have heard me anyway. It was really dumb.
Yep. Reminds me of another item that was particularly broken in the early patches of Borderlands 2 that was a shotgun. And this shotgun would shoot outwards, and then the bullets would form like a cross. They would continue moving forward, but there would also be bullets that went sideways. So what I did was I immediately went, oh, well, that's going to be broken, and started stacking on hit effects. So every time one of those bullets hit something, it applied an additional effect that was often damage. So you would get like just stacks and stacks and stacks of damage applying because, you know, it shoots 9 pellets that then split into 27 pellets that are all applying a slow, a burn, an acid debuff. Like, it just gets absurd. Unfortunately, they did patch that, so it got less broken. And I miss it.
Yeah, so, you know, a little aside of some using maybe helpful information. What do like, you know, I do it so often. What do we really look for when we're trying to find something that looks broken?
I try to find chains. I try to find those chains that maybe even like the game developers missed. Things that, you know, will combo together, maybe not super intuitively, and kind of try to exploit those to, you know, make a broken build. It wasn't super OP, it's just the first thing that came to mind, but in Doom Eternal, there was the grenade upgrade that when you kill someone with it, it blows up into a bunch of other smaller attacks. But there was also the upgrade that when you kill someone with your specials, like with an equipment, it lowers the recharge of it. So what would happen is you could fire into a bunch of low enemies, blow them up, and then basically get your thing back instantly because it would blow up all the small enemies around it as well. And then you could basically just run around and just start spamming grenades. And it got pretty strong, as well as there was another combo which was barrels respawn after being destroyed, as well as barrels drop ammo. As well as barrels drop ammo, and then you're not so reliant on the chainsaw, because then all of a sudden you can sit back and be like, I'm going to farm this barrel for some ammo. It's stuff like that. But I'm sure like it is very aware of all these combinations. But there's certain games that you'll find these kind of combos that they might have missed, that, you know, like, these really kind of play into each other, and they can come from like some pretty like well-known game designers. I know Magic the Gathering has a bunch of combo cards they accidentally released, and people kind of click and like, hey, you know, you typically wouldn't run this, but you know what? Under these circumstances, this is just like, you know, they combo into each other infinitely, and I win the game. It's just a lot of stuff like that can happen.
Magic's probably one of the most known for releasing cards, and then, oops, people are dying before they've taken a turn. We have to do something. I totally didn't have a black deck that killed people turn 0. I mean, it didn't happen often, but you draw the right cards, and oh yeah. Yep. I've got a delve EDH. No, dredge. Sorry, dredge, not delve. Dredge. Delve was broken too, but dredge. I'm a dredge fan. I'm more old school. And I can't believe I just called dredge old school, because I'm way more old school than dredge. But I started playing
when the lotuses were still around.
No, not quite. I just missed Lotus area. I started when the dark was a thing. I've played a couple hands of Magic in my life. We'll leave it at that.
So when we're finding these complementary broken things, I will generally start to look at anything that is extreme. Like, you know, maybe most shotguns, like, to use the Borderlands example again, maybe most shotguns shoot 8 to 10 pellets. That's a lot of bullets all at once. It adds up very quickly. But what if you find one that shoots 16? Like that's double the projectiles. Okay, well, what can I do with that? Oh, can I start stacking on hits with it? Because now I'm proccing these on hits 16 times instead of 8 times. Maybe, you find something that has a super high single shot damage. You go, okay, well, how can I increase that? Or how can I make that happen more often? And just sort of find a thing that is extreme and lean into it harder.
Another example of a exploitable skill that I found recently. I was playing the co-op game Remnant from the Ashes, and this was like I was playing the game co-op, so it was always co-op. So this kind of build was keeping that in mind. And one of the skills that I found was every time you take damage, you get a damage buff, and it stacks, I think, like 3 times or something like that. But in this game, when you're in like boss fights or something like that, you're not really going to be taking damage, so doesn't make sense to always, why would I have this when most things would just kill me? But it clicked in my head. I'm like, hey, there's friendly fire in this game, so I'm playing with friends. I just get them to shoot me in the middle of a boss fight, and it just triples my damage. And that's how they kind of like steamrolled through the game. I ran a glass cannon build with this, hey, just shoot me, so my damage is insane. You don't do much damage to me because you're just going to use your weaker weapon, and then I can just shoot the boss and just wreck it. And it's those kind of combos you find like that. Like, hey, you know what? I can utilize this. It's like, well, this doesn't make sense in these scenarios. But like, what can I do to make this work? Get my buddy to shoot me. Test it out. Does it work? Oh yeah, friendly fire makes. I took damage, so the buff is applied. And here we go. Then we had the shoot my friend in the ass fucking build. It was amazing.
I
make
think,
him mad and you're gonna lose.
I think shoot my friend in the ass build is the greatest build I've heard of today. That's number 1 for the day so far. Nanu, Mr. Lowe, welcome. I got nothing to top that. That's fantastic.
No, that's pretty good.
It was an interesting game. It sucked when like it would run out and I'm just yelling at my friends. I basically felt like a Borderlands bandit. I'm like, shoot me! Somebody shoot me! Shoot me in the face! Somebody shoot me!
I love that quest. I love that quest so much.
Oh, I love a good laugh. Yeah, that was one of my favorite moments of Borderlands 2 as well, was the shoot me guy. Absolutely. I haven't seen anybody else coming out with interesting builds. Board did mention the absolutely broken crafting in Skyrim, which was you use potions from alchemy that give plus blacksmithing to make blacksmithing gear that use blacksmithing to make gear that gives plus alchemy. Then you put the plus alchemy gear on to make a better plus blacksmithing potion, and then you drink that potion to make better plus alchemy gear, and then you put that gear on to make a better plus blacksmithing potion, and then you drink that potion to make better plus You see where I'm going with this?
Hi!
It gets real broken real quick.
Those infinite loops.
It was based off of a bug that made Fortify healing apply to all spells that hit the player. So any enchantments on your armor that made you better at alchemy were boosted by fortifying healing spells. Interesting. The one that I used was my loop that I was just talking about to make a one-handed axe that had like 500 or 600 attack power, and I was just one-shotting everything with it, and I wasn't even that far into the game. I lost interest then.
A slightly less broken and more standard way of doing something like that is avoiding trap stats. And I'm going to give an example of that from Ragnarok Online. Ragnarok Online had a fairly simple stat systems, 6 stats, do as you will with them. Attack, dex, int, whiz, faith, luck. And the interesting thing here is the luck stat, because the luck stat increased both your crit chance and your crit damage. So I thought, oh, well, that sounds fun.
Yeah.
How do I get the most attack damage? Can I attack with 2 weapons? Yeah, okay. Where's a class that can do that? Okay, the assassin. Okay, how do I boost my my attack speed? Keep boosting. And then eventually it's just a string of crits flying off the enemy as fast as the game can parse them.
That actually kind of
And-
reminds me of an old D2 build that I used to use, which is the Uber's Kicker. Have you ever heard of an Uber's Kickerson?
I have heard of this. I've never run one.
Okay, so it all is built around the mechanic of crushing blow in the game, which sounds okay when you first start reading it, and then the more you think about it, gets dumber and dumber and dumber and dumber. So a crushing blow in the game is a percentage chance to deal damage based on their current health. So instead of dealing a raw damage number, it would deal 10% of their health pool, current health. Not their total health, their current health. Yeah. So once you get into the Ubers, their health pools are astronomical. So suddenly the crushing blow is really the most effective way to reduce their health. Now, once we've gotten to 95% crushing blow with really expensive items, which are really expensive because they provide crushing blow, and crushing blow is now considered broken, so boom, prices shoot up. But once you've got that 95% crushing blow, the rest of the game is just about how fast can I attack to apply said crushing blow. Now it turns out the fastest attacks in the game are achieved on the assassin by filling your entire inventory with martial arts charms and putting all the plus martial arts gear you can on and all the plus skill gear you can on and putting all your points into the kick, that basic kick attack that does more kicks when you have it at a higher skill, and you can get to 42 kicks per second with a 95% chance to crushing blow.
So it just goes brap.
And it's unavoidable damage. It's not like they can resist it or anything.
Man.
So the bosses just go and your Ubers just disappear. It's like 2 seconds to kill an Ubers. It's the most hilarious thing you've ever seen. And if Diablo 2 is still worth playing, I'd say go do it. It's not anymore.
Man. I love finding little holes like that. Just little things that weren't quite thought out before they were implemented in the game.
Well, that was over years and years and years of patches, right? Like the crushing blow is an introduction of 2.1 something patch that was the introduction of rune words. Crushing blow didn't really... I think crushing blow existed before that, but you could only get like 10 or 15%. And then these super high power rune words came out where you can get like 50%, 70%. You're like, yeah, 75% crushing blow on a flail? Fuck yeah. I'll hold that and kick the shit out of something. Prepare to get kicked, motherfucker. Yeah. Yeah, and it was, it's just you're a assassin with a flail running around and kicking things until they explode. How could you not love this? Oh, and it worked with health drain on hit. for life drain percentage. So yeah, you're not going to die.
That reminds me of one of my silliest builds in Diablo 3. It wasn't the most effective build, but it was very silly.
That's like most of your builds.
Yes. But like silly in the way that it actually breaks the game's audio systems.
Oh no.
So the paladin, which is almost always my favorite class to play in a CRPG like that, or I guess a Diablo like in this case, actually Diablo, has the ability to throw its shield. And you can throw your shield, and with some modifications to that skill, you can then cause your shield to bounce from one target to the next. Okay, seems really good. You're effectively gaining area damage on an ability that does not have area damage. Sweet. Bonus damage. I love bonus damage. And then I found an item that removed the resource cost for using that skill. Okay, now I can use that skill infinitely. Awesome. Then I found another item that caused, instead of one shield to come off and hit another enemy and chain to the next, 5 shields to come off and chain from one enemy to the next. And then if you left your audio on once I got my attack speed high enough, you just kind of didn't get any audio other than shields. That was all you got. You didn't hear the rest of the game.
That's
not the most effective build, but my favorite because it's the most fun.
Yeah, that's kind of Diablo, actually.
Yep, it's very Diablo.
Let's not forget the
favorite.
Lagromancer.
Yeah, the Lagromancer is wonderful.
I always find it fun in games when you can find some way to stun lock. I can't think of the example off the top of my head, but I know there was one where you can stun an enemy, and there's some other ability that reduces all your cooldowns if you land like a skill shot, and the stun was a skill shot. But if you land it once, it basically reduces to the point of when that stun would end, you could reapply it, and then you would just keep doing that, and it doesn't really do much damage, but then the person can't do anything, and it was just hilarious to watch just this spamming thing over again, just basically watching this poor enemy just slowly die from an exploited build.
I guess it's not really a broken build, but my favorite way to kill somebody in the history of WoW was when druids were super broken and had a flight form that they could cast from and instantly change to, and they could fly around in the sky and cast a dot at somebody they saw riding their mount, which would instantly demount them and just let them plummet to the ground. But they would both demount because the druid cast the spell, so they're falling together, and then right before they hit the ground, the druid would turn into something that flies and not die and just hover above their corpse and hang out until they got back.
I remember that with paladins, you can bop, like you can do the physical damage shield on people.
Yep.
And I don't think that had to be in your party, and it demounts you when you do it.
Yep.
And I remember you could do some really, really fun stuff with that when people are like in the middle of somewhere, and you're like, I'm going to flip you and demount you for a guy's 30 seconds, or if they're flying and you happen just to be standing, you just cast it, and they just start flying away, and it was just hilarious. Or as well, it it could remove their active abilities that they had that relied on like physical damage. So if you just wanted to, if you're in a raid party, you just wanted to be mean and watch your DPS's damage fall off the charts, you just throw a bop over at them, and next thing you know, they just completely drop off the chart, and the raid leader's just yelling at them like, "What's going on?"
We would use it more like there was a similar ability in Rift where when there was a PvP rift or like a raid rift opened, they're always in PvP zones. Like always. That's where they open, purposely. And it announces to the other faction when it opens. So we would go in and we know the timings of stuff perfectly. So like right before the bosses are about to do the big heavy hits, we'd bop the tank. And it just drops aggro from him, and he just turns and slaughters the group.
And then you jump in and steal the kill.
No, if we kill it, they
There
get
you
the
go.
kill.
Ah.
You can't steal them. What we could do is constantly harass them until the rift closed, though. And that was, an hour and a half of fun, so we weren't doing anything else at the time.
Oh, vanilla polymorph in WoW. Polymorph an enemy into water. Undead can breathe underwater, so you just keep the enemy polymorphed and they drown.
Yep, that was totally a thing. I missed that. The old days of the jank. The old jank. And that?
Yeah, that's lovable jank, though. That's not just like the game is super broken and not fun to play.
Yeah, no, that was there's mechanics and we can abuse them. I've got 2 favorite stories of PvP from Vanilla WoW. First is ganking lobies in the lobby zone with my buddy's hunter. So you can't attack somebody in their own zone unless they attack you first. That's the only way they can get flagged or type /PvP and agree to fight you. But the hunter can take pets. So we would go and he would tame one of the boars in the area and hide in a bush and just let his boar wander around in the group of boars. It would just be a red boar instead of a yellow boar, but it still wouldn't be aggressive. Most of the people are newbies to the game and don't really get the difference between the mobs. As soon as they attack the wrong boar, they're PvP flagged for a while. That one was not nice at all. The better one, more fair one, not fair at all, but
more fair than
more
that.
fair than that still, I think, was in GadgetZan, the first real town where there's guards in both factions. The guards weren't ranged attack in those days, where nowadays they'll just shoot and kill you like instantly. In those days, they would chase you. So my buddy as a rogue would sap somebody, and all of the guards would aggro. And then he would pop sprint and just take off into the desert. And all of the guards in the town would just chase him off into the desert, leaving me alone in the town with this poor sapped guy who I would proceed to viciously murder before the guards got back and stand there next to his corpse. The guards would get back and they didn't see anything, so they would actually not attack me. They were actually not in a state to pick up my aggressive action at the time. However, when the Alliance gets back and attacks me for killing him, the guards were absolutely back by that time. Talk about some salty people. I was a dick in MMOs.
You know what's bad in WoW when they would, like they would go on their ult, or they'd get their buddy that's on the other faction just to whisper you to try to shit talk you, because you can't communicate through factions, but all of a sudden you get a whisper from someone who's like basically calling you out for being a dick. It's like, who are you? Like, oh, I'm so and so's friend from this. They asked me to go. Like, wait, they're that salty that they had to get their friend to make a tune on this server on board just so you could, it's like that's just gonna make me laugh even more. This is it's like the most salt thing ever. It just makes me hilarious. It's like, all right, how mad again? Like, what's the point? You're supposed to be mad. It's like, oh, mad. It's like, oh, really?
I succeeded then.
Mission accomplished. Yeah, no, I never had that, but I did start a war that lasted like 2 or 3 hours in game and stopped all leveling in the zone as like literally 100 different people of opposite factions and max level just descended upon the zone in furious combat because my level 40 rogue wouldn't stop ganking this poor guy's priest. And with those,
on that note,
fantastic
it may be time
stories,
to give away some video games.
It is absolutely time to do some game giveaways. Let me fire up my. I can't give away games and not fire up my dab rig. Giving away games just makes me smoke. It happens. They're both such good things. They just end up going hand in hand.
Nice to meet you.
Oh, thank you very much for the follow. We have to make our own random chooser, remember?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I have a bunch of work I need to do on RageBot.
Yeah.
Actually, you've got access to the source. You can build stuff.
I spend all my time streaming. So the first one is Raven again. Keep giving this guy games. I have no idea what Agents of Mayhem is, but
oh wow.
Apparently Pseudo knows. He'll tell you about it.
Agents of Mayhem.
I don't know if it's still active or not. I've never played it. I've just heard of it a few times. I don't know. You look at the title art and it kind of tells you most of what you need.
From the creators of Saints Row.
Yeah, looks very, definitely
looks very silly. Oh, well, and Snow, you won a game again.
Indeed. I'm trying to take it out of the Agents of Mayhem out of the list, but it's not coming out. I'll grab it after. I'll just roll again if it comes up again. I don't know what this is or where it came from. Indie Game the Movie.
That's a movie.
That's a movie.
Yeah,
Apparently
it's
it's a movie.
Really,
Okay.
actually,
Somebody sent me that.
Unless it's Indie Game, the movie, the game.
Okay. We'll re-roll that one. That's not. Hey, that's a good game. And hilarious.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. I liked that one a lot. It's a very weird game too. It has like this weird blend between action combat and RTS gameplay.
Yeah, with the like you get the certain units. I think it's pretty simple at least though. I think it was only like 3 different types of units, and you just try to take down the other people's stage. But it was pretty fun.
Yeah, I remember you playing it back in the day fairly often.
It's got Ozzy Osbourne, Jack Black. Good time.
Frenham won a racing game, so he can risk his life on a bike without risking his life on a bike. Because if I owned a bike, I would absolutely die.
Oh, 100%. But Nariel is making food, and it smells delicious.
And Space Ghost!
I said you're making delicious smelling food.
A copy
Space
of
Ghost.
Hive Swap, Act 1. I think I've seen something on that one before. I'm not super familiar with it. And Chug-a-Boom. I haven't seen... Oh, he's got one up there already. He's yet to claim it. I'm going to put the second one in there, and he better get a hold of me. If he doesn't, we might have to do something about it. Break some legs or something.
Chugga's not in Discord, is he?
Nope.
Oh.
He's regularly in chat, though. Now, this is a fantastic multiplayer game. God, I love that game. I'm not sure about that exact
yes, it is.
version of it. Oh, yeah, right. We need to... Yeah, I'll set that up. Right. I'm going to put that on my to-do list right now.
RageBot also put a link directly above you.
Yeah. RageBot spams it all the time, and then if you're on web, there's also a link right below the video to our Discord. Yeah, it's constantly spammed all over the place. Yeah, excellent. And yeah, if you are new, absolutely follow. Check out our Discord. We have a bunch of developers. As you can see, we've got more than just this. We've got people who make games. We've got people who play games. We've got people who meme games. We've got just generally friendly people. So come on by and ask your questions if you've got them. We've also got a channel just dedicated to IT support and fun stuff like that. So come ask computer questions too. We know most of it. We don't really have to look it up, so we're happy to help.
And if you're planning on building a new PC at any point in the future, we are more than happy to help you put together build guides. I know I love doing that. Deus loves doing that. I think Sudo loves doing that as well.
Yep.
Yeah, we've been building computers forever. I actually used to run a little side job selling and doing builds, and I still make custom gaming builds every once in a while when my old customers that I used to have track me down, like, you made the best computer I've ever had, I need you to make me another one. I can't say no to that.
Okay.
So, thanks for hanging out. I hope you had fun. I hope you learned something about builds. This video is always available. That whole document that we've done is available. I'll try to host the DIA file somewhere. If not, I'll at least take a screenshot of it and make sure that is available for you as well. Hope you've had a fantastic Saturday. I might be on later. I've got to go do some stuff, jumping my car and different things like that, because I haven't paid it enough attention. So if I do come back, we'll probably hook up the wheel and race some more cars.
Nice.
If I do.
Oh, did I break RageBot again?
Probably. That is what you do.
No, he's fine.
No,
he's fine.
He's good. That's good. All right. So, from all of us here, hope you've had a fantastic Saturday. I'm Deus.
I'm Rage.
And I'm Sudo.
May all your shots be headshots.